Peace and blessings, OMO House heads. Ja coming at you, video-wise today. I don't really know if I'm going to continue to do this, but I think after my experience yesterday, which was so authentically powerful and such a blessed moment, that in conjunction with an awesome sermon that I heard today from my minister Todd, who asked us to consider what is it that we forget. And then when you kind of bump that up against the miracle that I had yesterday, I felt like it was time to take a leap of faith and do the thing that sort of makes me uncomfortable. And for those of you who know me, and I think I've talked about this in some of the other conversations, I used to be a smoker, and I quit smoking and gained a lot of weight. So the thought of being on camera for any amount of time is really uncomfortable. But yesterday's situation was so impactful that I realized that it was time to not care so much about my physical and be more. And being more sometimes requires that we let our ego have a little rest and say, yeah, I know what you shouting, but it really doesn't matter. And so this is uncomfortable, and I'm willing to venture forth into my uncomfortability because I think it's time. Anyway, I don't really know where this is going to go, just like the audio recordings, but I must say that my heart wants to talk about the experience that I had yesterday, and I had considered writing about it, but it was such a powerful experience that I said, as good a writer as I am, I know that my oration, my love of words, my inner poet actually is more comfortable speaking as a means of expression than writing. And so I will do my best and put that together with what's on my heart as a whole today. And then you also get to see how I do what I do. And first of all, let me introduce you to the picture behind me. That is my black woman standing gracefully on this world. And, maybe I'll give you all a tour if I continue to do videos. But so first I want to start by saying that my heart is a little bit heavier than I thought it would be because I came in and decided to do a little social media run through and found out that, and here's my little notes, y'all see, this is how I kind of flow. A young man, 18-year-old, in St. Louis, and I definitely want to hold his name to the universe, Michael Brown. It appears that Michael was walking in St. Louis, and there are, of course, different versions of what happened, but what we know for sure was that he was unarmed. There was some kind of exchange or altercation between himself and a police officer, and he was shot 10 times. And I think, my mama used to say, to add insult to injury, his body was left in the street for 4 hours. And I think when I consider what's been going on in our nation, and I think about where we are spiritually as a community, and I listen to the question that my minister asked us, what is it that we are forgetting? And then I think about what happened yesterday. It kind of inspires me to have this type of conversation. So, about yesterday, which I'm still processing, a friend of mine and I went to Walmart because we needed a couple things. And as we were walking around the supermarket, or the big market, this fair-skinned woman mentioned something about my friend's hair, And interestingly enough, it was basically a comment about acknowledging a black woman wearing her hair naturally and giving off the sense that she felt good about herself. And, you know, the conversation led into a number of physicality conversations in terms of what black women go through around the diaspora, around the world. And interestingly enough, I knew that she was a woman of color, even though she was very fair-skinned. And the long story short is that we ended up having this really powerful conversation, which for me addressed a number of issues, questions, challenges that I've been feeling in my own soul as I enter into ministry. And it was amazing because this woman who later revealed that she was, I want to say in her 70s, although she looked like she was in her 50s. What it felt like in that moment was that she was addressing the issues of colonization. She was addressing the wounds of what has happened in our community, that we no longer trust each other. We no longer care for each other. We no longer take care of each other without being asked. And even when asked, it shows up as, you know, I got my own thing to handle. I have my own issues, my own worries, my own concerns. She then talked about the importance of women coming together to heal ourselves and heal each other, because in her experience of the world, both in Africa and her short time here, she has found that there's this thing that happens between black women especially, but all women. But I think the most powerful part of the conversation that I had with her was that she shared how she ended up coming to America, and she'd only been here, I think she said 6 months. So this woman, this queen, this elder was in an auto accident, and in that accident she was burned from her midsection down. All her children that were in the car with her were killed. And it was interesting because as she was telling the story, you know, my New York vibe was like, okay, what's the hustle? What's the con? But then at some point, she lifted up her pant legs and showed us the burn, and it was very real. And then she talked about her midsection area, and she said that her woman parts had been burnt off, and she was wearing a, I want to say, colostomy bag. And so as she opened up and started telling her story and what was going on with her, she then began to reveal that she had been reaching out to black women in this country for support, for connection, for sisterhood, and was having a really difficult time. And then she began to tell the story about why she was in Walmart. And as she began to tell the story, I realized that the conversation was moving toward she needed financial support. But the way she wove the story and began to incorporate this idea that in Western culture, we have this idea that God, in a sense, is only good when God is being good. And how she said it was really powerful, because she said, you know, we only seem to love God when things are going well. And as she started speaking about that, she started telling the Job story, but she started telling the Job story in a way that was so powerfully healing that I couldn't help but realize that what she was trying to say was that in our culture, we have somehow branded or marketed a God that is full of favors and full of blessings and full of abundance and full of I got your back and full of this feels good right now and full of, you know, you are so taken care of, full of, oh, I am so highly blessed in the kingdom. However, what she said was that there was a powerful learning if we could see that in the moments of our darkest times, our despair, our angst, that is when God is really showing up, not only as an amazing on-time God, but also gets to work through the hands of creation. So in other words, it's those down times where humanity gets to be the hands of God. And as she was talking, I started realizing that she was presenting a need. And I knew that it was going to be financial. And some of the stories she told were almost unbelievable. She talked about a church offering, without having seen her, to support her in her need till she goes back to Africa. And from the way she told the story, it sounded like it was a black church. However, when she got to the church, the first lady of the church was really hesitant to support her. And the statement that she revealed was, if you're a black woman, then I'm green, or something to that nature. Like she wasn't black enough. And she was fair skinned. But in that moment, all of these things began to come together. But I think this is where the power of the story goes. So after she said all of these things and I saw that she was in need financially, my first instinct was, I'm trying to do my own fundraiser. I ain't got nothing for her. But it was in that moment where I felt my ego, my flesh, my worldly concerns getting ready to be like, you don't have nothing for her. You know, you don't know if this is a con game or whatever. She said something that changed how I'll forever look at pretty much everything. And what she said was, she came to Walmart because this woman that she had run into had said this amazing thing about helping her, supporting her, whatever, and said, meet me at Walmart. And so she got to Walmart at 10 o'clock and she's looking for this woman who told her to be there. And the long and short of it is that the woman wasn't there. At some point she decided to go and ask for the manager, and she asked the manager, do you know this woman? And she knew the woman's name. And the manager said, oh yeah, she used to work here, but she hasn't worked here for 2 years. And when she said that, she then followed up with no anger, no animosity, no letdown, no disappointment. She said, well, I've been here since 10 a.m. and I've been walking around Walmart, striking up conversations with different people and, waiting to see how, God is going to support me in this need. And I saw at that moment that as she was talking about her experience of it, she wasn't upset. She didn't take it personal. And in her explanation, what I became clear of was that in her belief about who Jesus was for her and who God was for Jesus and who we are for each other in terms of community, there is no you or I or her and this other person in the kingdom of heaven. It really is life, holding life, building life, supporting life, life doing unto life. There is no individual sense of self. So for her, it wasn't, I came to Walmart and this woman who promised me. No, for her, God was moving her through the world, and whoever chose to give to her was not giving to her. It was God inspiring people to give to Jesus. And it was interesting because at first I was like, oh, this is a little too much Christological for me, too much Jesus. But what I got, what she was saying was that Jesus was an energy, an embodiment. And so when Jesus says, whatever you do to the least of these, you have done to me, she was saying God, life, the creator, inspires love. And so the easiest way for me to say it is like, love gives love to love. It's not about individualization. And in that moment, I got it. Like, it wasn't about me being concerned about my own fundraiser. It was me seeing her and her need and knowing that there was no choice but for me to give. And that was huge for me because my New York hustler, you're conning me, what's your real motivation? My own need came up in my face, and I realized, No, this is a powerful lesson about knowing that you will always be taken care of, knowing that community is more important than the individual sense of self. And so, with all that being said, when I got that and I decided to dig in my pocket and give despite my own need and be a blessing instead of looking to be blessed, something shifted for me. And it's interesting. So she thanked me and she walked away. And then as she was walking away, I was like, oh, this would be a great time to get a picture. And I could use this as part of my fundraiser. And I tell you, in a split second, she was gone. She wasn't in the store. She was gone. And so, I'm glad that my friend was there, because for me, I think that was like an angelic moment. When Abraham practices hospitality with them folk that visit him, those were angels. And so for me, I don't know anything else to say but that I had an angel visit me yesterday to realize that all my needs will be taken care of. And how I receive the greatest blessing is to give to others. And so I was sitting with that. And then today, Pastor Todd said, what are we forgetting? What are we not remembering? And so, as I processed today, I said, this is what I wanted the OMO House message to be. That I think as human beings caught up in our lives, we're forgetting to be and practice compassion. We are so me emphasized that we forget that this walking with is vitally important to us being true human beings. The other thing that I realize as my own community, which is predominantly white, is embracing and supporting me, and it's bringing up a lot of vulnerability for me, I realize that despite this design of race, black, white, Latino, Chinese, Japanese, like so many labels and boxes, that essentially we all have the same needs, hopes, desires. We have gotten so committed to othering and putting people out there that we forget that all of us, no matter what shade or hue, when we hold our children, we want the best for them. We dream for them. We want them to have a good life. We all want love. We all want a soft place to fall. We all want comfort. And so I think that we are forgetting our common humanity. The other thing that I realized was how important community is. Here's this woman, an elder, coming close to 80s, and she was alone and no one was there for her. And the thing she said, which was striking, was the Africa that she knew, her Africa, you never even had to ask for assistance. There's no way that a sister would allow anything to happen to you without knowing. There's no way that you could be suffering without community coming to your rescue. There was no way that you could be in pain without someone saying, let me be there for you, let me comfort you. And so I realized just how important community is, and how in this day and age we have completely forgotten. Like, it's almost as if we have an amnesia when it comes to who is our family. And I've said this a couple of times on OMO House, and that is, if we believe any of the creation stories, what we find is that humanity that we seem to have in common is always told in these stories as being, a commonality to the creator. Whoever the creator is, whatever the creation myth is, it's always about, we have this common connection via our creation. And so when we see what community really is and what it can be, I think that there is something that we're missing, which is, if we really understood community and we really practice community, we are never alone. And I think today, as I was talking to the ministers at my church, I became clear about how much we don't want to be alone, but we don't really know how to be vulnerable enough to have community support us. So I think that is one of the things that we're forgetting, is that in order to have authentic community, we have to be vulnerable with one another. And community matters. So that's another thing I think that we're forgetting. I think lastly, tenderheartedness matters. I think we have forgotten the beauty and the power of having a tender heart. In our culture, vulnerability is seen as weakness. Asking for support is considered allowing yourself to be a burden. You know, we are so individualized in our consciousness that it has made us hard-hearted to one another. And as I looked at this elder's burns on her body and listened to the story that she was telling, it became clear that the reason that she was alone in our country as a visitor was because all the people she had encountered had a hardened heart. And I found myself trying to explain to her why we have hard hearts in America. And as I listened to myself, it truly sounded like a justification. But even in that, she understood. But I realized that we always have a reason for why we do what we do. We even have reasons why we continue to support things that don't work. And something shifted for me in that moment. Like, there should never be a justification why we are not loving each other. There should never be a rationalization of why we choose not to be our best selves and practice loving kindness with one another. It doesn't matter how many times we may have been conned. It doesn't matter how many times we've been hurt. It doesn't matter how many times we've been lied to. It doesn't matter how many times we've been cheated on. It doesn't matter how many times we've been broke. It doesn't matter how many times we have experienced, the depths of hell in our lives. The truth is, we were made from love, to love, for love. And so, I think the thing that came to me is a new name switch for my own fundraiser, which, was PS Love. But then today it became clear, no, love wins. That's the PS. Love wins. And so if we really want to be in the space of remembrance, we have to practice love winning, self-love winning, community winning through love. And I think that's what gave me the courage to say, yeah, you may not be the 120 svelte pounds. You may not be 22 anymore. But if love wins, you have the courage to show up as you are. Know that you are loved as you are. And there's nothing that you have to do. There's nothing that you have to prove. And that's what became really clear as she was telling her story. And it resonated for me that we live in a culture where we're all inspired to prove our worth, prove our causes, prove that, we need help, prove that we want to be loved, prove that we are trustworthy. And I guess what I got standing in the front of that angel is that all of that exists in the moment of your birth. There is nothing to prove. We are worthy because we're here. And that's what we are forgetting, that we are worthy, we are beautiful, we are valuable because we're here. And so that's what I got. I am grateful for my angel appearance yesterday. And interestingly enough, my ego wants to say, oh, whatever. But then what came to me was this statement that one of my professors made to me when we were having a conversation about the resurrection of Jesus. And I said, well, I just don't know if I believe in a physical resurrection. For me, the resurrection is metaphoric, it's symbolic, and I'm going on and on and on. And this professor basically said, don't believe it because it's the truth. Don't believe it because it's a fact. Believe it because it's beautiful. And so yesterday, I encountered an angel. And I believe that because it's beautiful. Peace out.